Yo, 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 welcome everybody. We are live Friday, April 14th, 2017. It's the right side on campus. I'm your host, the big man on campus, joined as always by my co-host, Donnie, right side. Donnie, it's Friday, Easter weekend. If you celebrate Easter, we want to be politically correct out there. Welcome in. How you doing today?
Hey, doing good. No complaints here. Some decent baseball yesterday. Picked up a few winners there that we were able to put out on Twitter. I know last night you did send out a card of 3 early soccer plays today, which most people woke up, if you're just checking into the show now, a perfect 3-0 from the big man in soccer. And as they say on Wall Street, big man, money never sleeps. Get that action in early because there's money to be made around the globe at all hours of the day.
It's fucking mic drop time, Donnie. Mic drop time. I haven't lost this week in soccer. Count it. Juventus, winner. Dortmund over, winner. I gave you Real Madrid, plus 368, winner. I mean, I did lose yesterday. I'm sorry. I did lose. Matter of fact, did I lose yesterday? I'm trying to remember.
I'm not on what, soccer plays?
Yeah, I pushed. I had 2 pushes, so I didn't lose.
Yes, correct. Yes,
and
you
then
did have 2 pushes.
Today I went 3-0. I mean, I'm giving it all for free. I'm not charging you a dime for it. How about that? Mic drop time.
Donnie. Yeah, no, that worked. That worked out really good. Yesterday had the small play, as you saw on Twitter, with the Brewers over 4.5. Best part about that, it's like a blowout that wasn't a blowout. They got the 5th run, I believe, somewhere around the 4th inning, maybe the top of the 5th, or the 5th run, excuse me, and didn't score the rest of the game. Those are the ones that you like because you consider yourself to be extra sharp in that situation, Jeff.
Yeah, no, I hear you on that. I mean, that's a good move by you. Always a good idea fading Bronson Arroyo, yes, which we've talked about how he's in the major leagues. I'll never know. Donnie, we got a big show today. I'm excited for the day here at SBRforum.com, SBR Sports Fix on Twitter. Get on over to SBR Odds. Check out all the odds, the best in the business in any sport throughout the weekend. Make sure you check that out. Also, subscribe. If you're not a subscriber of our content here at SBR, subscribe. I mean, it's what sets you from winning and losing. If you subscribe to our show, we'll give you little gems. That's what we do. We'll give you the best breakdowns in the industry. And I'm saying the best. You want to come at me? You best not miss, like Omar Little. That's what I'll tell you. Make sure you come at me. You have a good breakdown. We're going to have a great guy today for the NBA playoffs, Donnie. Joe Duffy from Offshore Insiders is going to join us. Many SBR people know Joe Duffy. A great guy as far as analysis is concerned. Good food critic as well. Maybe we'll get a little bit of lunchtime talk from Joe Duffy on what he's having for lunch. And we'll go into the NBA playoffs. We're not going to go game to game. We're just going to talk about the series in general, how we're feeling about it. I'll even throw out a future too. I'm sure everyone here will. Also, we're going to jump into baseball here in one moment. I just want to let everyone know tonight, late night on campus, 10 o'clock Eastern, we will recap the day in baseball, the day in anything, really. I will have another soccer play, which I'll give out. But the beautiful and talented Natalie Rydstrom is going to join us, Donnie, tonight on the late night on campus. She'll talk about her life in sports betting, how she got into it. A little bit of big news from Natalie as well that she'll share. And we'll get a couple EPL plays from her. So a big day here, Donnie, on the airwaves.
Yeah, nice to have Natalie on the show to sort of class up the late night on campus a little bit from bringing us out of the gutter, so to speak. But yeah, interesting day in sports, as you said, Jeff. A lot to hit on. Major League Baseball card complete today. You have the NBA playoffs starting tomorrow. NHL playoffs in full swing. Big man's in the soccer, and just to maybe give you a little bit of information that might lead you in the right direction in some of these plays. That's what we're about here on the right side of campus. So Jeff, let's start it off, man. Let's have some fun. Card's yours. Where are we going?
Why don't you host this segment, Donnie? You're always good with this.
Let's do it. Let's do some baseball. We'll kick it off right in a row. And instead of going in rotation, we do have 2 afternoon games. First one there we'll start with is going to be Pittsburgh with Garrett Cole heading to Chicago with Hendricks. If we look at the opening lines, which I always like to do with SBRodds.com, Pinnacle opened up at about a -170 to the Cubs, a heavy favorite. But it looks like they're getting, some interesting money popping in there. 70% of the tickets are backing Chicago over Pittsburgh. Jeff, we talked about it quite a bit so far. What's the deal with Pittsburgh, big man?
I'm not sure. I don't know. They're putrid on the road, 0-3 to begin the season, hitting just 187. The problem, Donnie, as well, and it kind of is the double-edged sword, and kind of the both-edged sword. Pittsburgh's not hitting, They're giving up 5.2 runs a game. Opponents shooting 282 against them. And Garrett Cole is, got a good start to his career, but tailed off last year. He started out this year, had kind of a tough outing. He does have good numbers against the Cubs, but I'm just not really in belief that this Pirate team can hit consistently. I don't like fading the Cubs during the day. I don't know. This is involved with. I don't really see much of an edge here. I guess if gun to my head, I would go with the Cubs, but I'm not laying this kind of number. So for me, it's a pass. But the Pirates, I'm not sure how good they're going to be this year.
Yeah, Pirates opened up on the season, as you said, Jeff, struggling 3-6. They've been in the dog roll 3 times, lost all 3 times. The one thing is a little bit saving grace there is Pittsburgh has opened up the season. They're struggling all the way around, don't get me wrong, but 0-4 against left-handed pitchers. They'll get a little bit of a reprieve today, obviously going after a right-handed pitcher. But again, I'm not looking to bet a number at this value here early in April. Pittsburgh sooner or later is going to wake up out of this funk that they've had. I'm just not ready to back them. But as you said, big man, I don't have much on this game outside of you're just looking to fade the public. You're going to take, Pittsburgh in this role, -176, -80. It's a little bit too rich for me. When I look at fading, a line, so to speak, I want to get a little bit of value where I think the actual dog team, Jeff, is going to have a legitimate ability to win the game. With that number tells me that it's maybe a little bit out of reach. But again, I'm not interested in backing a home team at this point that's going to be laying, -160, -180 in that realm.
Yeah, one other point, and I mentioned it early, you're going to see some aggression from Hendricks. Obviously, he's not going to put out the best ERA in the NL this year. In his first outing, it wasn't particularly good against Milwaukee. He'll be a good pitcher. I don't think he'll be as good as he was. But as far as, in this game, there's just no value in either side. This is a total pass for me.
Yeah, no, I hear you on that one. I mean, it doesn't make too much sense. Hello to everybody out there again on the chat box there. A lot of these guys, longtime listeners out there, Tumorino, Vitalis, Cade, looks like Cal 707 Bear's been in here a couple times. By the way, big man with the Fila velour sweatsuit, straight mobbing over there in Lancaster, huh?
Well, it's not a velour, just polo. This is my show track jacket. It just kind of chills behind me here, and I rock it in the shows. It's when I don't feel like getting dressed, really, I just throw this on, and it works. But I do have 2 velour sweatsuits from Fila, black and white, and a blue and white. So, yeah, I'm a huge tracksuit guy. So, yeah, this isn't velour, but, yeah, that's how we do over here.
Yeah. Take a look at another game, an early afternoon ball game down in Washington, 4:05 Eastern Standard Time start. We're going to have Aaron Nola versus Steven Strasburg in this matchup. No surprise here. 75% of the tickets opening up early, Jeff, on Washington. Line opened up with Pinnacle on SBRodds.com at -202, dipping down into that -185, -190 range. So again, early season April, you're going to see some quote-unquote sharp money is going to take a little bit of chunk out of those overpriced favorites, which, again, Strasburg, the Phillies struggle with power arms. We all know that. But, again, it's early April baseball. You saw with the lineups you had, Strasburg, and you also had Scherzer on the mound in a series versus the Phillies, which nobody in their right mind would have said, hey, I'll take the Phillies in that series. Phillies end up pulling that one out. Revenge on the mind of the Nationals. I don't believe, too much in that early in the season, or if at all in baseball, since it's a long season. Any early thoughts on this one, Jeff? Open up with the over-under 7.5. I mean, a clear advantage for Washington here being the home team. What's your thoughts on that?
I do actually have a premium play in this game, so I'm going to stay away. It's actually one of the few times I will not give an opinion. I will say this. Phillies did win 2 out of 3 against these Nationals over the weekend, last weekend in Philadelphia. So keep that in mind. But I'm going to keep this one to myself. As far as quickly, Donnie, Guan White on the chat, watched Disgrace yesterday. I wouldn't care if Baylor burnt to the ground. Agreed. With that story, with just the rape stuff. Yeah, they're a disgusting university.
I mean, I hate to sidetrack it there, Jeff. The same like with that point there, but Baylor, what a track record this school has, and not even just like, hey, here's $1,000 from a booster that's going to pay a player, you slap on the wrist. I'm talking atrocities covered up across the board. Amazing stuff.
Yeah, and it's not like it just was once; it was twice, and there were 2 huge situations. Yeah, I don't really, I agree 100%. But yeah, Donnie, let's move on. What do we got next here? We're going to head into
take a quick look at this. We got St. Louis, big man, and your New York Yankees. A little rhyming pitcher matchup with Waka versus Tanaka. We all know how both of those opened up the season there. Pinnacle opens it at a -130. Yankees drawing a little bit of the money here because it looks like opening up early St. Louis actually has more tickets there, but the line is moving in an opposite direction to favor the Yankees here in an early April matchup. Questionable injuries there. Looks like obviously you saw the Sanchez injury, but also Brett Gardner now with the neck injury with a football play at first base the other day. I don't know if anybody was watching that Yankees game, but hell of a collision at first base. Looks like that might send him out a couple days in this. Leaning towards this one, I'm not buying St. Louis just yet in this one. Depending on how Waka comes out or not, I think Tanaka might get back on the right track here. I always like taking a Yankees ball club, Jeff, at home. If you're going to get a decent price on it, something -140 or less. They have a really good bullpen. And again, this isn't exactly an American League lineup that St. Louis is bringing to the Bronx. We have power hitting where you want to, incentivize the mismatch and add an extra power bat. That's not them. I would lean Yankees in this situation.
Yeah, as far as for me, I'm not in love with backing. The Yankees are a team I like to root for. I don't really like to back them. I did back them in the first play of the year, though, which was kind of out of the outlandish for me. But yeah, I kind of wonder, when Tanaka's going to get it straightened out, which, it's only 2 starts. He's given up 10 earned runs, though, in those 2 starts. So for me, that's concerning. But you mentioned it. This Yankee team, 4 in a row, just swept the Tampa Bay Rays in New York. Bullpen was fantastic. They have been fantastic. They're probably right now the best bullpen in baseball. If you look at the big picture,
1.19 ERA, Jeff.
However, it's not the lowest in the major leagues, Donnie. The Cincinnati Reds have the lowest.
Who would have? What was the odds on that one?
At 1.13, right? So they've only given up 1 home run. The Yankees. For me, I like what I've seen from this lineup lately. Obviously, how about Aaron Hicks yesterday, Donnie? 2 home runs. I guess he was listening to the plate. Yeah. I guess he was listening to the show when I was ragging on him the other day. But yeah, I'm going to be watching this one. I'm excited. I love interleague play. I will say, if Tanaka can get it figured out, I think the under's worth a look here. Cardinals, you mentioned, not exactly suitable against the American League. Waka, I like. I've always been a fan of Michael Waka. And Tanaka, we know he's a good pitcher. He's had some days off here to kind of revamp and get focused. He's been off 6 days now. This will be a 6-day rest for him. So, gut under, but not a game I'm going to be wagering on personally.
Yeah, me too. I'm more of a plus money, so-called Major League Better in April, but this game does have some signals that you like. Again, just getting back to the point, 42% of the tickets coming in on the Yankees opening line in that 130, now hovering about 140, 145. So line's moving in the right direction if you're a little bit of a contrarian player in that respect. Let's keep moving.
Great point by Edward Dager. Pirates 1 for 31 with runners in scoring position last week. Pathetic, disgusting. I want to point out something, and I've been wanted to mention it. Andrew McCutchen, is he not the most overrated player in the fucking major leagues? Seriously. And look, I know he was good at the beginning of his career. I'm aware of that. But the last year and 3 weeks, he's been a mess. For the most part. I know he's had, decent abilities at times, but it seems like he strikes out in the worst possible spots. He's only hitting 250 on the year, 1 home run. What's happened to him?
I don't know. It can't be that he's getting old, is it?
He only hit 256 last year, which for his standards isn't good. No. He was on the trading block. It just seems like whenever there's a big situation, he comes up, and blows it, of course. Yeah. But yeah, they've been putrid lately. Just been really, really bad. What's up, Brian? What's up, D from Detroit? Great name. Joe Marino, he's always on there. Cal Bear, what's up? Let's get into the next one, Donnie. We're firing away.
Yeah, let's go. Let's head right on down that list there. We'll go into rotation 9-17, 9-18, Baltimore and Toronto. One of the weird teams to open the season. Again, I wasn't expecting a whole hell of a lot from Toronto, but what they're giving you now is just, disgraceful, especially from a betting perspective. Miley's going to take the mound versus Sanchez. Maybe Sanchez this time today, big man, is the saving grace here for Toronto. But at this point, until they show me that they can show up, that they can hit the baseball, that they can stay healthy, I'm not interested in backing Toronto whatsoever at this point. Line opened up through Pinnacle at 150, dropped No surprise here, down to about 134, maybe that mid 130s range. Tickets are coming in surprisingly on Toronto, but that line is backpedaling. That ought to be a little bit of a red flag. Josh Donaldson again today will be questionable with actually doubtful with the calf injury. To me in this one, I'm not a big, Miley lover in this one. Left-hander, Toronto typically hits left-handers well. I'm not interested in even laying at any point Toronto right now with minus money on that.
I'm not sure how you can bet on Toronto right now. I mean, this team is brutal to start the year. 1-8. Their one win came against Blake Snell, who against with the Tampa Bay Rays, who look, you should beat him. But I mean, this team has been really poor. But then you look at Miley. I mean, not a guy that you're particularly in love with backing. Kind of one of those Wei-Yin Shen, Miguel Gonzalez types. He's going to give you 4 or 5 innings, hopefully. And, the problem he has is he does walk a lot of batters. He did walk 7 against the Yankees on Sunday. So that's concerning. Not a lot to like here. I got to tell you, Donnie, and I'm going to just make a point. With Toronto, they're going to win at some point. I feel like tonight might be the day, but am I laying 135? Hell no. This is ridiculous. If I was getting 125, 135 with Toronto, I would lay it. But at this price, another pass for me.
Yeah, Miley was averaging his first start coming out of the gate. Sanchez, you hope would turn it around, which is why Vegas is going to set that line as Toronto being a favorite. But again, you got to show me that you can actually jump out and wake up at this point. I used a point last week with Oakland versus the Kansas City Royals, who hopefully have woken up now, but they weren't awake. Triggs went in there and beat them. Same type of thing here. You have to show me until that Toronto team wakes up, and it doesn't help again, just getting back to Donaldson being out of that lineup again. Maybe some of the pop is not there, and Baltimore can hit, and Baltimore can pitch on the back end. So I might be leaning in this one towards taking the plus money with the Baltimore Orioles. But again, until Toronto shows me something, I can't back them.
Yeah, no Donaldson. Obviously, that's concerning. Good point. This line opened 150. I mean,
exactly.
What? Anyone ever do round robins? No, I don't.
No, not a big guy on that, man.
The Harper Island had 8-teamer, $48, paid $3,000. When was this? Great job. Good for you. Must be nice.
Some numbers there.
What's the biggest parlay you ever hit, Don?
Not very much. I mean, I don't bet that much on parlays. I mean, I've hit messing around, half unit 5-team parlays, but I'm not a big, lottery ticket guy, because you see out there, bet $1 and bet like 19 things on 5 dimes or whatever, Yeah.
Joel McDonald, Toronto team total unders are gold. Good. Yeah, they are. But look at today. Wade Miley, not a guy I'm really looking to bet against or bet on. So I would pass with this game altogether.
Yeah. All right, let's hit the next one here. Detroit and Cleveland. Yesterday, Detroit was a little bit snake bitten. Usually kings of the afternoon matinees, not so much yesterday, as Minnesota put a nice whipping on them. Norris versus Bauer tonight. Bauer is one of those guys that, sometimes like to lump in with those old Minnesota guys, the Malones, the Gibsons, pitchers like that can either bring it one day and get shelled the next. Early opening line with Pinnacle Jeff on SBRodds.com, minus 125, ballooned up now with Pinnacle to minus 155 or higher. So certainly some action coming in here on Cleveland. 52% of the tickets. So not a huge disparagement between, betting favorite and underdog in this one for some reverse line movement. This line's going in the right direction here. Looks like Cleveland should get right. I would lean towards Cleveland, but again, it's early in the season in April. Trevor Bauer is not worth a minus 155 to me. I would pass on this game. It would be Cleveland or nothing, but I'm not going to take Bauer at that number today.
Yeah, I disagree. I would go with the Tigers here. At this price, I'll take a shot with the Tigers. Trevor Bauer stinks. You look at the batters, Detroit batters against Trevor Bauer. Avila, 375. Cabrera, 300. Castellanos, 316. Kinsler, 282, 292. I mean, a lot of guys hit him well. But it's hard to get involved with Daniel Norris also. I think the best play for this game is probably – to be honest, Detroit team total over. I think they hit Bauer pretty good tonight. But, right now, Cleveland's kind of desperate. I mean, they've lost 5 of 6. Their offense has kind of went into hibernation mode. I saw some Encarnacion stuff. I think going into yesterday, his last 6 at-bats, he had 4 strikeouts and 2 grounding into double plays with the bases loaded. So right now, he's at a tough start to the year. They're going to go through some lumps, but I've actually seen people, Donnie. Now this is going on out there right now. I've actually seen people saying that Cleveland's not going to do shit this year. I've seen that.
It's not like they have a tough competition. They don't have the Cubs to battle with in the division or anything.
And they're not far from the tree that we're on here.
Yeah.
Okay? I'm just going to tell you that. That is a ridiculous statement. They're 4-5.
This is big man. This is your Gonzaga of the baseball season, Cleveland this year.
It is. They are. They are. Give some respect to the Cleveland Indians. All right, come on, stop with that stupid stuff. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, we're going to peel through these last couple games rather quickly here. I also have a Twitter play that I did put out earlier, which I think does have some value. We'll hit that game there. Just to go over some of these that are popping up here. Archer versus Porcello, Tampa Bay, obviously at Boston. Line opens up at 140. Have some reverse line movement. Minus 134 there now at Pinnacle. And it looks like only 34% of the wagers are backing staff ace Chris Archer here versus Rick Porcello. Any thoughts or leans in this one here? Tampa Bay, I don't really like to, outside of playing down in South Florida in the Dome there, I'm not really a big fan of that. I think Boston's got it back a little bit together. But again, I think Chris Archer getting plus money at any point, especially not being a heavy public favorite with a little reverse line movement, I might take Archer here plus the positive number here.
Yeah. I think the Tampa Bay's lineup's a little bit better than people might think. I'd love to get 9 and go under. That's kind of my thinking pattern here. I think this total's too high. I mean, anything involving Chris Archer, I'm looking under the total. Archer's a guy that has improved. I mean, he was great in his first couple years, yet last year's a little bit hit or miss. But here's the point with Archer that we have to make. He wasn't bad last year. He just didn't get any run support. That's good news for an under. Tampa Bay's not been a good road team as well. They've only hit 186 over that time. I think the under is a decent play, especially if you can get 9. That would be the number that I'd be looking at here in this one.
Yeah, no, interesting on that too. Maybe you might even look at a first 5 there, taking Archer getting plus the run support. But again, Archer, until we have, go ahead.
One thing, Archer is poor against the Red Sox. That's, obviously kind of a reason that I'm not in love with anything really here. But here's the thing about Archer. He's a good kid. He's a smart kid. He's a talented kid. At some point, he's going to throw a nice game against the Red Sox. I mentioned, I'm not in love with the Red Sox right now. I think they will struggle a little bit the first half of the season. I think it's a good spot to back him here and hope that he pitches well.
We talked about it on the show yesterday or on Wednesday, big man. Next guy coming up here with the Mets and the Marlins, Noah Syndergaard, on our who we going to ride, who we going to fade. He was definitely on one of those ride trains there. It's almost like Syndergaard at any number is a good number at this point. He is going on the road versus a nice hitting lineup there with the Marlins. How is this game going to play last night, Jeff? 16-inning marathon. The bullpens there are going to be under stress. The one thing I look at is Syndergaard can probably give you 7 to 8 innings in this one. Ken Volquez matched that because with depleted bullpens, that's another additive that you're going to want to take a look at this matchup because you don't have everybody available tonight. The bullpen was maxed out. You're going to need a horse on the mound that's going to be able to carry you and give you 7 to 8 innings. I think he can do that. Again, it's early baseball. It's minus 160 out there at Chris, minus 155 at 5 dimes. I'm not interested in laying in a road favorite there, but if you're asking for my perspective in this one, it's Syndergaard or nobody for me here.
Yeah, how about that game last night? They scored 16 runs in 8 innings,
and then it just shuts off.
Yeah, and go to sleep until the 16th. By the way, Donnie.
Yeah.
Can you want a life more than that Marlins man guy? I mean, really? Did you see him
travel everywhere, sit with some hot chicks? Yeah, saw the pictures from the front row.
Those girls were banging, dude. Like, good for him. Good for him. We got to get him.
Not a bad area to live in for banging chicks as well, Jeff.
He's someone I'm going to try to get on the show. He's got to be someone that's pretty reachable. He seems pretty reachable. So
no, he definitely likes media. So yes,
I'm going to try to get him on the show. That would be awesome, wouldn't it? But yeah, as far as this game's concerned, I like your point about Syndergaard. Thor should be able to go pretty deep into this game. They're going to need him to go deep into this game. Volquez is a fade for me. He is not a guy that I look to back frequently. I just don't think he has it, honestly. But, yeah, I would lean Mets here, but it's definitely a pretty high number. A lot of crazy things as far as, what happened last night. So this is another game I'll avoid.
Yeah, taking a look at the next one, the surprise team of the century. I mean, a little bit overblown there, but we'll take a look at Milwaukee versus Cincinnati. Malone, the lefty, versus Feldman. Line opens up at minus. Here's an interesting one here. A lot of people back in Milwaukee in this spot. Minus 135, it opens up, Jeff. Reverse line movement, minus to 117 early, despite 63% of the tickets being on Cincinnati. You know how I love to look at line movements in April. This is one I'm definitely going to take an extra look at a little bit later tonight. Maybe, expecting Milwaukee to have a decent night here, depending on what happens. Over under being at 9 in this one. 7:10 Eastern start rotation, 9:09, 9:10. Early thoughts on Milwaukee and Cincinnati?
I really like the Reds here in this game.
Do you? Okay.
Yeah, I think after last night, they were kind of shut out against a guy, Jimmy Nelson, who I think is really underrated. I think he's one of the few really good pitchers that the Milwaukee Brewers have. But you look at Scott Feldman, Donnie, had a tough start to the year against the Phillies, but really bounced back the other night against the Cardinals. 6 shutout innings, only gave up 4 hits in that game. I mentioned it. This Cincinnati Pen, 1.13 ERA, the best in the major leagues right now, I believe. So for me, I like what this Reds team has done offensively. They're hitting 264 as a collective unit. And Tommy Malone, I've mentioned time and time again, is a pure fade piece. He's one of the worst pitchers in the major leagues. How he's still on an active roster, I'm lost. He's just bad. I don't know what else to say. I also want to point out last season, Donnie.
Yeah.
The Cincinnati Reds weren't particularly good against left-handed pitching. That's one concern I have here, but I like what Feldman did in a bounce-back role. Not a particularly strong lineup here from Milwaukee. I think the Reds continue to be underpriced. They would be a side so far than other than my premium play. This is the one side that I will look at a little bit further in.
Yeah, definitely getting a cheap number now with that line peeling back in reverse to start the day, which is interesting. So Sharps look like they're backing Malone at this point. Maybe a suicide mission early in the season, but definitely one to keep your eye on. Next game
Good
up.
point. Ed Degger, burn your money before backing Tommy Malone. Yeah, you know what? I'd rather take that money, walk outside, and just hand it to someone that could use it over I would. Because we know Tommy Malone, I mean, come on. But a big man, thanks for the Hall. No problem, Benyam. Very glad you tailed. Donnie, that's the great thing about my fucking football plays. Not only am I giving you straight up winners, I'm giving you big underdogs. Hoffenheim, Bayern, or Real Madrid. I gave up Monaco here on the Natalie Rydstrom show. I mean, come on. Mm-hmm. Fuck with me if you want, but you better bring a gun to the
free money.
Yeah. Let's move
free money.
on.
I don't even know where half these teams are at, big man, but I still tail them. And hey,
doesn't matter where they are. Doesn't matter where they are. Hey, it's like a cockroach race. As long as we have an edge, we're going to bet on it. Let's move on. We got Joe Duffy coming here.
Yep, you got it. Let's wrap this up here. We'll go over a couple of these quick games here. San Diego, Atlanta, Chaseen versus Tehran opening up. No surprise, big man. 69% of the tickets coming in on Atlanta. Opened up at minus 150, peeling back a little bit to high minus 130s in this one. I really don't have too much of a feel on this one. 2 really bad ball clubs. One interesting caveat here, though, Jeff. New ballpark opening up in Atlanta tonight.
Okay, so are we automatically going to flip the switch and Atlanta's going to be good all of a sudden because they're opening up a new ballpark that still won't sell out? Here's the thing about the Atlanta Braves and their situation tonight. If I'm a dog and I'm a beagle and I hang out with Rottweilers, doesn't make me a Rottweiler. I'm still a beagle at the end of the day. You can't make a bad team good just because they're going to a new stadium. Atlanta's still a bad team, laying 140. Great point, Rob Job. Atlanta is a favorite, question mark. Yeah, that's ridiculous. I will say this, Tehran is a guy that I do like, but Atlanta's been a mess. They can't hit, but the Padres are bad too. So I guess if Atlanta's going to win, it'd be tonight, but I'm not laying 136 with them. This is just a game I'll, again, pass.
Yeah, another interesting point, though, when Jeff, you talk about, Tehran, maybe he was pitching back at Sun Life Park for, 5-6 years. This is the first game that they're going to play there, from what my understanding is. I don't even think they had a dry run like one of those on-deck series that the Phillies would play, 3 games to open up before the stadium comes out. Batting eyes, pitching, not used to that environment. Is this a true? I mean, I know the fans obviously are going to be rooting for Atlanta, but if you haven't played in the ballpark, do you have an advantage in it?
Right. No, it's a good point. Yeah, I don't think. Again, Tehran's a good pitcher, but you have to score some runs to win, and Listen, San Diego's actually been decent. So, yeah, I don't have any opinion on this game. This is a game that, good for them. They're going to have a nice stadium to go to. But the problem is no one goes to their games. I don't understand. No one goes to them. They're like the worst attendance in the major leagues. Who cares?
It's amazing, Atlanta, too. I mean, good sports town, but the fact that they were able to get the Georgia Dome basically rebuilt next door, and then also the Braves, who, again, you always struggle with attendance problems. Sure, give them a brand new stadium. We'll just move it into Cobb County. Definitely interesting. You want to hit the taxpayers up or live off the tax dime down there? Sports people, head to Atlanta. It looks like you could profit very well off the government there, no question.
I wonder, though, and I know Joe Duffy actually lives down in this area, so I'll have to ask him about this. But, I mean, where is this stadium exactly? Is it even that close to Atlanta?
No, it's out, whatever. It's not in Atlanta there, so it's on the outskirts. I guess what would be the equivalent of something outside of Philadelphia being in the suburbs. So,
but like every stadium's like right there. I mean, it's hard to at least you're right there. I'll have to ask Joe about that. Let's get
pick
to
let's pick two more games out here instead of going over the rest of them. Interesting matchup late night tonight, Jeff, which we will be talking about obviously live on the show late night at campus. Zach Greinke, Clayton Kershaw, two of the highest paid players in baseball, former teammates going at each other. And Greinke, Jeff, not getting any respect. Opens up 210, immediately bet up to minus 245. I know how good Kershaw is. I know Greinke hasn't been that, but if you're just looking to take a flyer in this one, nobody's laying. I mean, you shouldn't be laying minus 245. Cleveland has shown you that direction versus the White Sox the past couple of days. You might lean towards Greinke, maybe a run line in this one. But again, when lines are that high, I'm not big on just saying, hey, let's just take a chunk out of Greinke and see what happens there. I don't believe that's a very valuable betting strategy. I would stay away from this, but maybe for people in the chat box there, just an interesting matchup to see how it comes in. LA Dodger bats, they're obviously struggling. Arizona can get hot. We know that. So a nice game if you're just a fan to go watch two ball clubs here tonight. But outside of that, I don't see much betting value here, big man.
Yeah, I would probably go over if I had to. I mean, Greinke hasn't been able to figure it out. It seems like we know the Diamondbacks can rake. Dodgers, a good offensive team at home for the most part. Put up 7 runs a game in Dodger Stadium at 6. I think that's a pretty nice price. I mean, I know it's Kershaw and everything, but who knows?
You're not asking for that much.
Yeah, I could see a 4-3 game here or something. At that price at 6. Whenever I see a 6, I'll take a shot with it, especially with the Diamondbacks and Greinke. It's not like it's Kershaw against Bumgarner here. I mean,
yeah, no.
Greinke.
The final game we're going to go over today is the LAA, Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim versus Kansas City. Danny Duffy, left-hander. Looks like a little bit of a mismatch in this one. Ramirez is going to get a spot start here. One thing I like in this matchup, and again in April, it's not so much about a statistic. It's more about feel. Big ballpark there in Kansas City, obviously, but you are going to catch a break here. About 15-mile-an-hour wind blowing out the left field tonight. The air very thin, 62% on the index, which means very low humidity. In this one, I'm going to take a flyer on the over 9. I did see it pop up even a little bit to 9.5 in this one. So some interesting line movement there. I just think Kansas City might be able to wake up here. You're going to stack the bats on the right-hand side with the Angels. I'm going to take a little bit here on a Twitter play over 9 as my Twitter play of the day, just to leave you with something. I think it's a good situation. You can definitely see a 6-4, 6-5 type of ball game. So I'm going to go ahead, big man, and take the over in the Kansas City game tonight.
I really like the Royals here in this game. I think Danny Duffy's the guy that I like. I think he's a kid that is a guy that could turn into a number one starter. I think he has that kind of stuff. Kansas City got a win last night. It wasn't pretty. They only put up 3 runs. But, I've mentioned they are a way better home team over time than a road team. JC Ramirez starting tonight, first major league career start. A guy that has a career 5 ERA, over 5 ERA in the major leagues. Hasn't had, he's had a pretty good career. I mean, 111 games, he's been involved, but he's a spot start guy, and that's never a good thing. But I do think your overplay is decent as well. I think both teams will score some runs, but I think Kansas City is in a good spot here at home. I always look to back a team at home like Kansas City and fade a guy making a spot start. So for me, I would look with the Royals. 2 plays that I do like from the games we discussed. I do like the Reds. I do like the Royals. I look more into those. But other than that, guys, definitely, slow
Yeah,
down,
even
don't go
swinging the
crazy.
bats and hat there. Again, yeah, just half unit, 1 unit play for you guys out there. Just in the last couple of games, if you look at the Angels, 5-4, 10-9, 6-5, 8-3, 8-3. So they're tending and trending to play over type ball games. And again, always key to look at the wind and the weather. It's perfect hitting conditions in Kansas City. I'll take my chances here.
Yeah, no, I hear you. It's just, the one issue you have is that Royals team. They've struggled to hit the baseball. I mean, there's no doubt about that. So there he is, Joe Duffy. Welcome in, man.
Unlike that, Joe. We need you here.
Yeah, Joe, your mic's muted, man.
Jeff, sign language for him. Good.
He.
All right, now I'm on, right?
There he is.
The funny thing is, when I was muted, I was bragging about I got it technically right this time, and there I go bragging, and it smacks me right in the face.
We'll admit Joe doesn't use Hangouts too often, but welcome in, Joe.
He just got on email, folks. So
yeah.
Before we start, Joe, I wanted to ask you. I know you live in that Georgia area, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
How far is the new stadium from the Atlanta Metro?
Oh, it's not that far at all. Maybe about 10 miles outside of the metro area. But for me, I live on the east side, northeast, and it's northwest, so it may or may not be better for me.
Okay. Yeah, well, for you, it's going to be a little bit further. I just kind of wanted to know, as far as I knew it wasn't that far, but I know it's not in the city limits. Joe, you're here to talk NBA, and obviously these playoffs begin tomorrow, which I think a lot of people, the monotony of the regular season does get a little bit tired, as far as players not playing, and the garbage trash that we've seen the last 2 weeks. It's really been kind of the playoffs are welcoming for sure, and you got some great matchups here to kind of begin the season in the playoffs here. Let's jump into it. Joe, I got to ask you, are you you're an NBA guy? I know that. How do you handicap NBA?
Well, really, since the since the early 90s, I've been kind of a computer guru. And I know that a lot of people talk about this much maligned zigzag theory. And the truth is, the blind zigzag is 498 and 460, which is 52%. It's so. Now, I don't know if you guys follow a fellow by the name of Gary Collard on Twitter. He's one of the more knowledgeable NBA guys. But years ago, on the old Usenet news group, he would have what he called the Denise Malanis theory. Apparently she's some porn star or something, but he named it after her because it was a bounce back. I guess she was very bouncy. But anyway, I tested his theory with computer software, and I find out that what I call the bounce back, which is the better looking sister of the zigzags, very good, that teams off of blowouts. And also, because we're talking about spreads and perception, teams that are both off of straight up blowouts and spread blowouts generally do bounce back well. So I make a lot of adjustments. That's kind of the irony. I know we're going to talk about some of the series prices, but what I really like to do is make in-series adjustments. And I have a lot of computer systems saved. And I'll give them a shout out. I'm not affiliated with them, but Sports Database is a great site. If you know how to program. Most of it's in kind of algebraic language, but a great site if you're a fan of computer programs.
Awesome. Donnie, I know you like those kind of things. So
yes, absolutely.
Sure.
By the way,
Jeff,
Joe, on the point there, made like the zigzag theory and the bounce backs. Like, I'm not a big NBA bettor, but I can see when some trends set up and play pretty well. During the regular season, obviously not so much of a pressure point. But again, playing into the series, whether it be a 5-game series or a 7-game series, that team that, sort of wins game 1 maybe takes, a little bit of pressure off them from game 2, which is the exact opposite effect for the team that needs to win game 2. Right. Do you play anything into that, or look, who needs the game more in the playoffs, albeit?
No, not actually who needs the game more, but especially when a team is off of a blowout loss, which is really when the bounce back works. It makes sense in that team is going to be the one that makes the adjustment. So they kind of have the built-in element of surprise. The team that won by 15, 20 points, they're not going to make adjustments. So the team that is off of the loss is going to bounce back. And really part of the bounce back is the further we go into the playoffs and the better the team is, the more effective the bounce back is. So just think about it. The teams that haven't effectively bounced back from losses, they're watching this. They didn't make the playoffs. So for a team to make the playoffs, they've already shown some ability to respond to losses. So I think that's one of the reasons why it works. But no, as far as the team that needs it more, I don't really like that theory, because I found during the regular season when somebody says, I like this side because they need it more, that's usually the ultimate go against. But I guess it would apply a little bit more effectively in the playoffs, because the teams that are in the playoffs have won games when they've needed to win games.
Gotcha.
Amen. Sure. Yeah, I agree with that. Let's get into it here, guys. We'll start with the Saturday games first, and again, we're not going to go game to game. We'll do that throughout the weeks on the shows, but this is more of kind of a share your favorite angle and just kind of a little overview of the series. You got the Cleveland Cavaliers laying a big price, minus 970 against the Pacers. They're getting back 635 if you dare to bet against the Cavs. I mean, guys, we got to really come to the realization. LeBron doesn't lose in the first round.
Right.
I mean, he's never lost a first round. I mean, he hasn't lost a game in the first round since 2012. And, we've talked about – I've been critical of Cleveland. In the regular season, they were a mess. I mean, they lost, 9 or 12 of 21 down the stretch. Their defense was poor. And it just didn't seem like they cared too much. They didn't care much about the 1 seed. They kind of just let that go by the wayside. And now it's time to put up or shut up for the Cleveland Cavaliers. But for me, the first round is something that I'm not looking to bet against the Cavs. I will say this: the Pacers have improved a little bit, especially bringing in Lance Stevenson. He's been a nice shot in the arm for this team. But can they win a game? I don't think. Cavs are in a sweep. Pays a nice price, plus 345. You have to kind of go with, I think, with the history. But my official play, I'm going to go Cavs win the series 4-1, plus 170. I think Indiana can win a game. I do. I think maybe a home game. Maybe they get the Cavs a little bit vulnerable in a defensive situation. I think they can win one game. Not in love with this series. Joe, anything on this one?
Yeah, here on my sheet, I even have exactly that, the Cavs in 5. You mentioned LeBron James, not only all this stuff you said, and he's won 17 straight games straight up in the first round. His teams have never lost more than 2 games. So anybody who really wants to try to outsmart themselves and try to figure out a reason that Indiana is going to win this series, forget it. You're just throwing your money away. But I agree with you. I think, look, a lot of people are asking, can Paul George find the fountain of youth? I don't think he's going to be able to find it for the whole series, but maybe there will be one game where he'll step it up, and I do think they will steal one game, but I agree with you 100%. I've got the Cavs in 5 here.
And the Pacers are middling defensive team. Early in the year, they were a team that was brutal on defense, but they're kind of in the middle of the pack. Donnie, what do you think? Can they steal a game here?
I'm thinking they might steal a game. I mean, even though that the NBA playoffs that we've seen, it's almost treated to me like a football season. It seems like they play one time a week in the first round because everything has to be on TV. The one thing that I think would play in Indiana's favor if it wasn't like that, maybe if if Cleveland got up 2-0 or 3-0, maybe LeBron even takes it easy on one game. But I don't think that's going to happen here. I would lean towards a sweep as well, just because they're going to be playing like every 5 nights. Everybody's going to be rested for Cleveland. You're going to be getting their full tilt every single night. So I think the sweep's in order in that one.
Yeah, and I mean you're definitely going with history there. I mean LeBron has been money in first rounds, but that defense does have some issues. Let's move to the next one here. You get Toronto, a team that I'm very high on. The Toronto Raptors minus 380 against the Bucks. Bucks pays you back 315. Bucks, look, they did finish the season 20-10. Antetokounmpo is probably the most improved player by a long shot. He was fantastic. I also like, Joe, and I'm sure you can mention this, Malcolm Brogdon, the Virginia Cavalier, was really good. I mean, I think other than Joel Embiid and Dario Saric, he's probably the rookie of the year. He was really good. But, you look at what the Raptors kind of bring you. I mean, very tough to beat in Toronto. They added Ibaka and PJ Tucker, who have really added nice dimensions to their games. Valanciunas, a really solid big. And the Villanova product, Kyle Lowry with DeMar DeRozan, really kind of a 1-2 punch right there. Lowry coming off an injury, but he's only going to get better. I don't think the Bucks stand much a chance here. I got to be honest. I think Toronto sweeps the Bucks, honestly. But plus 618, not a bad play. I have Toronto to win the East at 10-1, which I'm going to put out there continuously. I love that play. Donnie, I'll start with you. Let's start with you. What do you think here?
The one thing I like about the Raptors, again, I'm not a huge NBA guy, but the one thing you can't dismiss is the rabid fan base that Toronto has at home, a clear advantage whenever they're playing in their building in the Air Canada Center. I do think, however, Jeff, I don't think a sweep is in order. I think Milwaukee's going to get up for one of those games 3 or 4 once they get home court in this one. I definitely look for the Raptors, but more in a 4-2 or whatever. Is it a 5-game series the first round?
7.
No, 7.
7-game series, yeah. I look for a 4-2 type in that one.
Really? You think they're going to win 2 games? Wow.
I think they can. I'm not a huge, you know me, I'm not a huge Raptors guy. I haven't been a huge Raptors guy all year. I just think they might let down a little bit. Maybe just the sight of Milwaukee just being excited to be there. I think they can steal 2 games.
Yeah, you're definitely a Raptor hater.
I am. Ever since you started pegging them, I just started downing them even more as well.
You've been talking shit on them all year. Guys, I will point out, Buck's a little bit of a one-trick pony maybe. I mean, Antetokounmpo leads them in every category. I mean, every one. I mean, there's not one he doesn't. I mean, can they get a couple other guys to step up? I mean, Jabari Parker, obviously you're missing him. Chris Middleton's been limited. I don't think they have much of a chance. Jason Kidd, also a guy that I don't think belongs in the playoffs. Joe, what do you think here? You're going to break a tie here? Do you think they can sweep? What do you think?
Well, the funny thing is I agree with both of you in some respects. So I'm kind of taking the middle. I do think that Milwaukee will steal a couple games. First of all, in the case of Toronto, they did have a couple injuries at the end of the year, and they got those late season acquisitions like Ibaka. So chemistry could be a little bit of an issue because they weren't really able to play together all that much at the end of the year in Milwaukee because they do have that young talent. They are dangerous. And exactly as both of you guys said, we know that Toronto's phenomenal at home. We think of Toronto as an NHL city, but you watched any of their games last year or even previous years, you can see they just love the Raptors when it comes to the playoffs. But Milwaukee at home, and especially since younger teams tend to play a little bit better at home than they do on the road, I do think that Milwaukee can perhaps steal a game. And look, DeRozan, he's a guy that can be very streaky shooting-wise. You can see him go in long shooting slumps, and he'll keep shooting the ball. So I do think that Milwaukee's capable of stealing 2 games. I do have Toronto in 6. But remember, the fact that the Raptors finally took the big step last year and they won a series, and then they played obviously very impressively against Cleveland, but now they got the burden of high expectations, so they're not going to sneak up on anybody. So I do think that this will go 6, but the favorite will win.
Yeah, it's hard to get interest. I mean, there's no way the Bucks win this series. I think I just really no shot. As far as the price on Toronto, I just want to point out, looks like I'm maybe a little sharp, guys. Toronto wins the East down to 825 on 5-9. So still a pretty good price there. If you do like Toronto, maybe you want to get that in sooner rather than later. Saturday, let's jump into a little bit of the West. You got the San Antonio Spurs laying a gigantic number, over 10-1 to win this series. Grizzlies gives you back plus 675. This has been a regular appearance, these two teams. They played each other in 4 of the last 7 playoffs, so definitely know each other. But the Grizzlies down the stretch weren't good at 7-13 over their last 20. If you want good, up and down type of basketball, this probably isn't the series for you. Spurs were number 1 in defensive rating this year. We know the Grizzlies want to slow it down and kind of play in and out. It'll be a good matchup down low with Aldridge against Gasol and those guys. But for me, I just don't really see a situation. I think the Grizzlies maybe can win a game here, but I think Tamara makes a good point here. Allen injury is huge. Tony Allen probably to this day is one of the best defenders in the league. That's going to be a difficult guy to guard Kawhi Leonard. I'm not sure if anyone can do that on this Grizzlies team. No real value. Spurs will move on. Can the Grizzlies win a game, Joe Duffy?
It really comes down to Mike Conley. Can he really go off? If so, they can steal a game. Look, don't underestimate the fact, the obvious. Obviously, it's the Spurs' first time in 21 years they're going to be playing without Tim Duncan in the postseason. So if you're a big fan of leadership, of course, the fact that he won't be there as their undisputed leader, that's going to hurt. I don't think it's really going to hurt their championship chances long run because they were a team that had a ton of depth, and obviously Pop is the guy who came up with the resting of the players and wound up building depth throughout the year. So San Antonio is a very deep team, but they will miss Duncan somewhat. You can't take a Hall of Famer away, and it's your first postseason in 2 decades without him. I do think that Memphis will steal a couple games, especially, like I said, maybe Conley will have a couple good games where he can go off and single-handedly steal it. I think the Spurs will win it in 6.
You might get, and again, I'm going to have to look at the numbers game to game, but I know I've mentioned the way I cap NBA normally is kind of just fading steam and things like that.
Yeah.
You may get some good value on overs in this series. I think a lot of people are going to look at both these teams and say every game is going to be under 88, 83 or something. You might get some good value in that, so I'll just point that out. By the way, Donnie Wright said, take a listen to this. Mike Conley this year will make $30 million, almost $31 million. As far as per game this year, let's look at his stats and see if they agree with that contract. He's been good. Is he worth $30 million a year? We all know that's absolutely ostentatious.
And he had that perfect storm contract coming up with the CBA, so he's right in life.
Yeah, timing is everything.
Amen. What do you think about that?
As far as, look, he's going to have to earn it, clearly, for them to have any prayer whatsoever. But as far as the contract, it is more of a timing thing. It's not, it's not like every guy signs a contract at the same time. And probably in 3 years, a guy who's the 25th best player in the league, his contract's going to expire at the right time, and he might be the highest paid player in the league. I don't think that's really going to be any factor as far as the series is concerned. But sure. I agree, Jeff, what you said is true. I've been a big contrarian bettor for a long time, and I have a couple of the online sources that I use, as well as some contacts with some of my outlaw guys. And when everyone says, look, the square money's going this way, but some of the sharp money's going this way, that is an extremely valuable handicapping tool. So I agree with you there.
Preach, Joe. Preach on that topic.
Yes.
Yeah, that's for the NBA. I think the only way to bet it. Obviously, it's a little less, in the playoffs, a little bit more meaningful. But Donnie, let me ask you.
Yes.
And I think a great point here on the chat by Edward Dagger. As far as the Grizzlies, I don't think they're going to get crushed in this series. I don't. I think they'll be close game to game. I don't think they're a pushover, which, like he said, Tony Parker, Ginobili getting up there. Is this series close to you?
It's going to be a physical series to me. I mean, I have it at about 4-2, I would say, in this one going 6 games. It's one of those things where, the playoff structure is really going to help both of these teams out, being a little bit older and, used to being in the playoff picture. But I just see the Spurs being the stronger team, better coached overall, better players overall. But it's going to be really physical. The one thing I would look at, Jeff, is not even this series alone. The winner of this series, if it does go, just say 6 or 7 games, does that carry over to the second round of playoffs? Because it's going to be extremely physical.
Yeah, no, you're dead right about that. A lot of big bangers down low. The one problem, though, for the Grizzlies, who will guard Kawhi Leonard in this series? That's kind of the big question. In what I think is probably going to be a fun series, I think this is really going to be kind of an even series. You get the LA Clippers minus 215 against the Utah Jazz. They bring back around plus 180, depending where you look. Clippers. We can agree. The last 3 months or last 3 years have been a mess in the playoffs for this team. I mean, no one will disagree with that. And I've heard a lot of people mentioning, with free agency looming, this could be a blow-up situation if the Clippers don't go deep in these playoffs. I like this Jazz team. I've been a proponent of them. I backed them in certain spots this year. I think defensively, they're probably, other than the Spurs, the best defense in the Western Conference. I really like what they do. I think they've kind of had a renaissance of a season. Gobert's a good player. I love Gordon Hayward. He kind of just fits them so well. I think the Clippers are going to have a tough time in this series. I really think this series could go 6 or 7. I'll venture to say I think it can go 7. I like what Utah does. They're kind of a newcomer to the playoffs. We haven't seen them in kind of some time, it seems like. With the way they play defense, I think they're a live dog. I think we'll see some unders in this series as well. I'm going to take a flyer out. I'm going to go with the Jazz. I just don't like the Clippers in the playoffs, and I think it's time to blow that up a little bit. I'm going to take the Jazz plus 180 to win this series.
Yeah, I would agree with you. In fact, I also have the Jazz, and you were mentioning Gordon Hayward. The Clippers don't really have anybody who can stop him. He's done very well. He matches up very well against the Clippers. He's had more than his share of success, and the Jazz have had more than their share of injuries this year, where Hill, Hayward, Favors, and Hood have all missed time. When they've played together, they've been outstanding. So if Utah can actually be healthy, they are without question a dark horse. And yeah, they are also my upset pick because, as you said, the Clippers have come up short. As good of a coach as Doc Rivers I thought was, maybe their postseason record doesn't really justify that. So I also do have the Jazz in a probable upset here.
Yeah, I mean, they really had a nice season. And you mentioned kind of the inconsistency at times with their lineup. I mean, George Hill missed time, Rod Hood missed times, Derek Favors missed times. So, they all kind of but you look at their team, there's not like other than Hayward, a sexy name on this team. I mean, you got Joe Johnson near the end of his career and Shelvin Mack, remember him out of Butler, Joe Ingles from Australia. Donnie, are you going to make it a three-peat here?
Actually, I would, I'm just going to go chalk in the NBA, especially the first round. I would take the Clippers in this round in a close one. I just think they have more firepower overall. And again, let's not leave it out. There's a lot more money for the NBA in that LA market than there is for Utah. I always play that conspiracy theorist in the NBA. I would lean on the Clippers here.
Come on, man.
Well, I got the Knicks to win it all. Oh, wait a minute.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
As far as somebody's mentioned that the Jazz have no bench, I don't know about that. I mean, Shelvin Mack's a good player. Exum, he hasn't really been what we thought he would be, but he's still a worthy player. They do have some veterans in Boris Diaw who can still hoop a little bit, and Joe Johnson. So, look, again, they're not a sexy team. They don't have that sexy look to them, but they do what they do. They play the right way, and they're a great defense team. George Hill is an underrated guy. I'll continue to say that. A good guard, really tough, been in the league for a lot of years, and Gobert is a problem down low. The Jazz are a good look possibly here in this series to maybe pull the upset. Let's move on here if I can get – the second, hold on one second here, guys. I just got to get the brackets up here. Where are we at? Let's move on. Sunday. Hopefully we have a little bit more of a underdog feel. I don't think it's going to start out here early on. I'm not even going to give the price for this Warriors-Blazers series because no one's betting it either way. Quickly, does anyone think the Portland Trailblazers have a shot to win even a game here?
No. They certainly have no chance at winning the series, but if they win a game, that would be a surprise. Because Golden State, look, obviously because of what happened last year, they're in statement mode, although you could counter that by saying no statements are really going to be made in the first round anyway, but I do think a sweep is the obvious way to go.
Yeah, I mean, it's hurts that, they get Nurkic, but Nurkic isn't going to play because he's out with an injury. So that definitely hurts as far as that's concerned. I'm not sure how much it would really matter, but it's Donnie, do you have the numbers of a sweep here?
I do not have the numbers. I'm just looking at the straight numbers for the games on the weekend.
All right, no problem. Let's just move on to the next series. I think a lot of people, Donnie, you have the chat box up. What are people saying on this series?
Warriors in a sweep. Dubs all the way. Portland fell off. I think that could give you a little idea of where they're headed.
Warriors minus 7,000 to win this.
Is that what it really is? Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Trailblazers give you back 30-1. So if you're feeling froggy, jump. You do have an opportunity there. Damian Lillard, just not sure he's enough. Good player, but not enough to handle this Warrior team. Let's move on. Chicago and the Boston Celtics. Celtics laying 470. Bulls pay back 375. This is obviously the 1-8 matchup here for the Eastern Conference. Celtics down the stretch, struggled a little bit. I think we can agree. Did get the number one seed, but defensively they had some issues. They weren't that lockdown defense we're kind of accustomed to. But though down the stretch, did win 7 of 10, and that's how they kind of won this series in getting that number one seed. Joe Duffy, I'm going to start with you. I don't have, and kind of maybe I'll kind of go off of what you say, but the Bulls are a team that will kind of have kind of some of those retreads, the Rajon Rondos and those kind of players. Jimmy Butler, nice player, but is he a superstar? I'm not sure. Horford, I think he's going to be a tough matchup down low for anyone. He's a good floor spacer. Can hit a 3 if he needs to. For me, it's not a cakewalk. I'll say Boston could win it in 6. I think the Bulls are kind of live here. I think they're a decent team. I think they're kind of, they're not getting a ton of respect, clearly being that 8 seed. I don't think this is a cakewalk by any means. Bulls will win a couple games, but the Celtics will move on. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I definitely agree there. The only problem with the Bulls is Jimmy Butler hasn't done well against the Celtics. I kind of rotate Crowder, Smart, and Bradley on him, and he's only shot 36% against the Celtics. So if he struggles like that in the postseason, it could be a short series. But, one of those guys, as a general rule of thumb, when we're talking about a Celtics team that is the Nove Riche, I know my French is never all that good. I always like to think that a team until
what does that mean, Joe?
The newly rich, the newly rich, and from a sports term, a team that certainly has a lot of talent and has had success during the regular season, but they really got to show they can go deep in the playoffs. So kind of the burden of high expectations, basically. Boston has some high expectations, and I've seen, teams when it gets close, they can lose a game or two under those circumstances. So I think that might work against them. But one thing that really helps the Celtics, look, they're ecstatic that Taj Gibson is going. He has rebounded very well against them. And, whether or not that'll be a good trade for Chicago overall is one thing, but against the Celtics, he matches up well. So if you're a big believer in matchups, the Celtics are the play here. But I just have like you, I just think that Boston, because they haven't really been there, done that in the postseason, Chicago will steal 2 games.
Yeah, amen. Donnie, your thoughts?
Yeah, what an interesting dichotomy looking at both, 1-8 matchups in each arena. You have Golden State Warriors minus 7,000 looking to just walk Portland off the court. And then you have the Chicago Bulls here, which people are actually entertaining, maybe a 6 to 7 game series. So interesting the way that both the East and the West are made up here.
Good point. Yeah, no, you're right about that. I just don't think, we all know the East is definitely not as superior as the West. And look, the Celtics, are they a number 1 seed? Yeah, but did they really earn it? I'm not really sure. Cleveland kind of just fell apart and didn't want to really play for it. So I'll be honest. Who would you rather play, the Bulls or the Pacers? I'd rather play the Pacers. So I guess the Cavs were kind of smart in doing that. Shout out to Donnie for always keeping up with the chat box. Yeah, he does a nice job with that.
Yeah, I'll dig in. I let the experts get down on the NBA here, and I play with my friends in the sandbox in here.
Well, you definitely, we know you play in the sandbox a little bit more than others. You're a little bit of a nut. We agree with that. Let's move on. Probably the best series of the playoffs. Oklahoma City and Houston. Houston laying 375, Oakland giving you back plus 313, plus 315 around there. Talk about a series, guys. This is going to be a great series. You got obviously Russell Westbrook against James Harden, the 2 MVP candidates neck and neck going head to head here. It's going to be great, must-see basketball at all times. But you look at kind of the one guy that I think maybe is a key in this series, public enemy number 1, Patrick Beverley, who good defender, kind of a guy that I know for me is just an annoying guy. I know he just is a relentless guy, just never kind of goes away. He's very physical, and he'll push people's buttons. That's kind of him in a nutshell. Here's the way I think this is a good series. You look at Houston. Their issue defensively is in the paint. They're giving up 49 points a game in the paint. That's the worst in the NBA. I just think, for me, the Thunder, a team that definitely can do some things down low with Enes Kanter and Steven Adams. We all know Russell can get into the paint. I think they're going to have some trouble. I think that's where the series, if the Thunder can win it, that's going to be where it is. Russell Westbrook obviously has been amazing this whole year. He's going to have to continue to be amazing. He's going to have a chip on his shoulder. He's going to have to put up a lot of points in the series. But do I like the Thunder and think they have enough? No. I think Houston will prevail just because they think they're a little bit better of a team. But it's going to be a great series to watch. Joe?
I definitely agree with that. And if Oklahoma City, as you alluded to, Jeff, if they're going to win, it's going to be on the boards. They do have a great 3-headed monster inside with Kanter, Adams, and, of course, Gibson. And if Houston misses some shots, OKC could definitely make this quite interesting. But yeah, the subplot is quite obvious there. Something that gamblers want to be aware of. We talked earlier about contrarian and counterintuitive stuff. Not shockingly, high totals in the postseason tend to go under at a very high rate. So we might have some very good under opportunities, and there's a pretty good chance I'll have a premium player too on the under in this series. But again, I make the game by game adjustments. But keep that in mind if you're a totals better.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the first game here on Sunday, 228 for a total.
Yeah.
So they're definitely setting this one high. The Rockets do a nice job of guarding the 3-point line. We'll see. Obviously, Russell and James would be a great matchup. It's going to be fun for sure. And they're putting that on primetime. So that'll be fun. How about that Golden State not on primetime? That's pretty interesting. But I guess they're not going to be a good series anyway. So
yeah, this is the sexiest series without question.
Sure. Houston will light them up. All right. Good for the good point, Cambridge. You might be right. OKC Houston went over easily in Houston, under easily in Oklahoma City. I don't know about that. Joe might be right though. You got to look at, are these games overpriced? And again, a public fade in these playoffs will be unders in this series. Yeah. We know public square bettors are going to look over, and they look over to begin with in any sport.
Right. Correct.
Most times squares bet over. Final series here, guys. It is in the Eastern Conference. Should be a pretty good one. You get the Atlanta Hawks and the Washington Wizards. Wizards laying 225. Hawks at a pretty nice price at 185. As far as for me in this one, I think it'll kind of be similar to that Clipper Jazz series. It should be a good series. Washington, obviously, Beal being healthy, that's going to be, obviously both them being healthy is a big thing. They've been two really good guards. Obviously, the Hawks have a really good defense with Millsap and Dwight Howard, who I know people don't like Dwight Howard just because of his antics, but I think he's just been on the wrong teams in his career. They just really haven't worked for him, but he's had a pretty decent year for them. Hawks are in the playoffs for the 10th straight year, which I didn't know this, the longest streak in the Eastern Conference. So definitely something to be excited about if you're a Hawks fan. This should be a competitive series. Wizards are, though, a little bit more balanced. I don't know. I'm up in the air. This is a coin flip. I think this series can go 7. I think it might be the one series that will go 7 in the East. This is tough. Joe, what do you think? Before I don't have much of a pick. What do you think?
Well, although I am at the end of the day going with the favorite, one of the more interesting statistics I saw, and some might argue this is an outlier statistic, I don't really think so, because I think at times we really need to look at the beginning of the season to the end of the season. So many people look too much at the end of the season. And the only time I would do that is if maybe, a key player was injured or came back from an injury, but unless there are obvious personnel changes. But what I do think is a significant statistic, 12 teams have made the postseason after starting out 2-8. We're talking about straight up. Just one has won a series before. And that would say the fade, the Wizards. The Wizards started out 2-8, but of course they did make the playoffs. And again, I don't think that is an outlier statistic, but at the end of the day, I still think that Washington will win, even though the Hawks are kind of dangerous. They're another team that had their share of injuries, and they're finally getting healthy at the right time. But look, I remember when these teams met a couple years ago, Washington almost pulled it off, and that was with John Wall missing 3 games, and he was, less than 50% for 2 other games. Of course, especially the Hawks have made some personnel changes since then, so it's not like it's an obvious comparison to 2 years ago, but there's still the nucleus of the teams are somewhat similar, especially with Washington. All in all, despite what I said, I still think the Wizards will win this one in 6.
Yeah, the one issue that I do have with the Wizards are they've been poor defensively. I mean, they're one of the worst teams left in these playoffs defensively. As far as in the Eastern Conference, they are the worst team left in the playoffs, just below Cleveland, actually, in the East in defensive statistics going forward. So, yeah, I mean, Atlanta is a team, though, that has played pretty well down the stretch. But I think one point that I do see being made here is, can Dennis Schroeder guard John Wall? I mean, that's kind of the big question. But Edward Degger sitting on Wizards 50-1 to win the East. Wow, good for you. That's a awesome value, clearly. Donnie, are you related to Philip Rivers? You're a dead ringer.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's his twin, actually.
Send me some of that money, Phil.
Yeah, yeah. You do look alike, though. I will say that.
And I am related to Brad Pitt. People ask me that all the time.
Absolutely. Yep.
I'm related to Cristiano Ronaldo. He's actually my brother. He's actually we just talked earlier. So yeah, I know you can tell, but yeah, Joe, I was wondering. I was going to ask you, is your name Joe Pitt? You do look like him.
Hey, every now and then I've got an email from a client when I'm in a slump calling me Joe Pitt. So,
Joe, you're great, man. Before we go, I want to ask you great info. I always enjoy talking to you. You're one of my favorite people to talk to in this business. Give me your favorite future. Give me your favorite thing to look forward to. Something that we can make some money on.
If anything, I would say, well, I guess it wouldn't be a future bet. I would look for those who do live betting, maybe take a look at the foul trouble for Isaiah Thomas, because Boston, with their points per 100 possessions, so much higher with him on the court than off of the court. But as far as a favorite future that screams out at me, I'm not really all that sure. Not to cop out. I've never been a big futures bettor, simply because I don't want it to bias me making the game adjustments. So I don't know if I really have one that screams out and bites me.
Yeah, they're definitely tough. I mean, especially at this point, the first series, there are a lot of big numbers for sure. For me, I think obviously, I think the Jazz are worth a look at 180. I think we can't delve away from the fact that the Clippers have had issues in the playoffs. I think the Jazz are always a tough matchup for anyone as far as the way they play defense. We know that crowd out in Utah, they haven't really seen the playoffs in some time. Really haven't had a good team since the Karl Malone and John Stockton days. So yeah, I mean, I think they're going to be excited as well. And look, why can't they? So, Joe, I want to thank you, man. Before we let you go, I got a question for you. Yep. We always talk to you about food. I know you're a big food guy. What are you having for lunch today?
Ooh, that is a very good question. I actually, and I do some part-time writing for a website, Scoop 8 OTP. If you're in the Atlanta area, I do give my recommendations there. The funny thing is, I had some leftovers. I had a delicious steak and eggs before I was on with you, and a new multi-use complex, Avalon, just opened up around here, which includes a lot of highly touted restaurants. Took my family, when you texted me, that's where I was with my family yesterday. So that was the opening day of phase 2. I might go to phase 2 again today, but exactly what it's going to be, it's hard to say. But I might have a friend coming over Sunday to watch the NHL playoffs, and we're talking about ordering O4W Pizza, which if you look it up, is one of the most highly touted pizza places in the universe.
Yeah, I'm a big, I've gotten into pizza a lot lately for some reason. I wasn't always a huge pizza guy. I like it, but I kind of, I definitely order a slice, I feel like, with every meal I get. But I mentioned it last night, I had a great Cuban sandwich last night. Just fantastic. By the way, Guan White, who I believe is from the area down in Atlanta, or near there, Tennessee, Fox Brothers Barbecue.
Oh, yes. Yeah, Fox Brothers Barbecue is tremendous. It used to be the best in Atlanta, but there's now a place, Cracklin' Bees. Tell him Cracklin' Bees. They're originally in Savannah. They just opened up one here in Atlanta. And even a friend of mine who's the biggest Fox Brothers apologist, he also says Cracklin' Bees is now the new king of barbecue in Atlanta. But Fox Brothers is great.
There you go. I've been to Atlanta one time, and they were very nice people. I will say that.
I'll give you a tour.
I have to come down there. You have to come up to your old stomping ground, Joe. I mean, what are you doing? Come on.
Yeah, my parents still live in Marlton, so I'll be visiting, around the July 4th holidays. And one of my favorite places on earth is the Reading Terminal.
Joe, here's the thing. I'm down in the shore. That time period. Donnie lives in South Jersey. We have to link up and get a meal or something. Yes. Awesome stuff, Joe. You're the best. I always appreciate talking to you. Enjoy the series. We'll have you on kind of in the middle as well.
You guys do a tremendous job. Look, I like what Brent's doing in Las Vegas, but as far as live, pure handicapping stuff, you guys are the best on any form of media.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, Joe. That's appreciative. Joe, one other thing before we go. One of the listeners is asking about Calgary. Obviously, they lose 28 in a row to the Anaheim Mighty Ducks. Yeah. I think they're the Mighty, whatever. I don't follow hockey too much. Do they lose 29, Joe?
I have to admit, even though I do NHL handicapping, I was not aware of that statistic. But most likely, and I will say that in the NHL, I do have a bubble burst theory that's held up in the postseason, regular season and postseason, that when a team's on a long losing streak and it gets snapped, I go against them. So that's something that could wind up being a bubble burst theory, to say the least.
One other thing, this guy on the chat box is making it clear that NBA officiating is so important in the NBA playoffs. Maybe 10 years ago when Tim Donaghy was in the league, Scott Foster is one of the last of the Mohicans. So please stop talking to me about NBA officiating. But I'm a work in progress with the NBA, so maybe I shouldn't be talking about it. Come on, dude, stop. Officiating's important. Yeah. It's important in any sport, but I think it's a little less important nowadays in the NBA. NBA under a microscope. Adam Silver has really made the NBA a lot better product, particularly in the playoffs. I don't think officiating's that big a deal. Joe, any thoughts on that?
I can say that I handicap officiating, and I've never been a huge conspiracy theory guy. Of course, if things don't go my way at the end, I might temporarily become a conspiracy theory guy, but no, I'm not a conspiracy theory guy at the end of the day.
I'm not thinking that anything about Scott Foster. Clearly, there are guys that ref people differently, but yeah. Right. I'll say this, it's not something that I'm looking forward to unless it's a Scott Foster, other than that.
Yeah, and I used to be a big fan of Fox Sheets, which is very good for officiating stuff. And I've never really, and I've studied it. I've looked at it via Fox Sheets, and I've never found anything in baseball or basketball that really gives much of an edge when it comes to handicapping officials or umpires.
Sure. Very good. Joe, you're the best. Appreciate it. We'll talk to you in the middle of the playoffs. Have a great day and a good weekend, man. Happy Easter.
Thank you, gentlemen. Happy Easter to you guys as well.
Take care, Joe. Thank you.
All right, guys. Thanks.
Great stuff, Don, from Joe Duffy. Always someone that brings the great information as far as, trends. And how about the food stuff? I mean, he kind of made me hungry talking about
it is. It's lunchtime up here. You know it.
Talking about, steak and eggs and all sorts of stuff. Justin, can you help him get out of there? I think he might have a little trouble getting out. He doesn't use
he's trapped in a glass case of emotion down there. There he goes. All right.
Yeah. There he goes. But Donnie, great show nonetheless. Yep. Appreciate everyone chiming in. I will say again, Edward Dager, great price on the Washington Wizards at 50-1. That's fantastic to win the East. With 4 teams left, how about that, Don? Or 8 teams left. I'm sorry. How about that? Anything you want to bring up, Donnie, here before we end the show?
No, that's it. Just going to buckle in, watch a little bit of afternoon baseball. We'll get ready for the late night on campus. Natalie will be a part of that show, so we'll have some good fun.
Yeah, before we go, I do want to mention, and this is going to be a play that, due to having a nice day in soccer, I am going to release and point out. Again, I mean, go light on it. I'm going to lay a unit just to my own money. It's a 245 game here in League One. That's in France. I'm going to go with PSG. I'm going to lay the 1.5 goals plus 103. Now that the Champions League is gone and past, PSG can obviously, kind of work on the league. And here's why PSG, I think, is a team that we really have to look out for going forward in this league. PSG is 3 points behind Monaco for being the best team in the league. Monaco obviously entrenched in Champions League. They're in the middle of their Champions League with Dortmund right now. PSG is cleared of it. They're not involved anymore. PSG is the best defense in this league. We know they could score some goals. Angers, the team they're playing today, really a middling to poor French team, not a team that scores a ton of goals. So they've been in decent form lately. They just lost to 1-0 to Monaco, which was a nice performance. But I think with the kind of the situation here, PSG, if they can win this game, they will be tied with Monaco going into the games this weekend. I think this is a good spot for them to get the job done. I'll lay the 1.5 goals. I think they can win this one 2-0 or 3-0. We know PSG is a great team, and they're going to be fully free, Donnie, of that Champions League monkey off their back. As far as am I picking Bilbao Palmas? Yeah, Bilbao's been a pretty good team as far as me. I backed them once, I believe, during the run that I'm on here, which, by the way, the run is kind of where I started posting free soccer. So for any people out there that want to know that, you have one game in La Liga today, which La Liga can be tough at times, especially dealing with some of these middling, moderately good teams, but Los Palmos is not very good. I don't have much of an opinion on this game. I'm not really interested in laying 1.5 with Bilbao. I don't want to lay a big number with them either. And both teams' the score looks like it's lost any value. So I'm going to avoid La Liga today. I'll be looking at it tomorrow. But guys, get prepared for tomorrow. I'm going to have plenty of plays in the various leagues. For me, though, the only play I'll be on today is Paris Saint-Germain, -1.5 goals, +103. That goes at 2:45 Eastern. So get it in. Also, Donnie, I want to shout this out. I don't know if anyone saw it. I hope you did. If you enjoy hockey, Ian Cameron, he does a podcast with an up-and-comer. Andrew McGinnis is his name. He's a good kid from up in Canada. He's a young, 19 years old. What would you pay to be 19 years old, Don?
A lot of money. I wouldn't have to pay any bills. I could tell you that much.
Like what would that's before we go, what would you have to pay to be 19 again? What would you pay for that?
I mean, it's
Give me $1.
whatever. I guess, yeah, whatever I would have in my savings checking and also retirement account, right?
Yeah.
Priceless.
19 man was.
I do it all over again. Now, do I get to take a sports almanac back with me, Jeff? So we can just go take down Vegas?
Yeah. No, I have nothing more in the championship today. Newcastle Leeds. I'm not really interested in that one. I made my money in champion today, so I'm going to move on. But Paris Saint-Germain for me. But as I was saying, 19-year-old kid getting his start in the business. He's trying to get a little podcast going. And I remember, Donnie, when I was a wee young lad in this business back 3-4 years ago when I started the Big Man on Campus podcast. Back then, it was called the College Football Odds Report. It was a 19 or 20-minute show I did where I highlighted 3 college football games that I liked. I reached out to a guy at the time. Vince Parker was his name. He's no longer in the business. He owns various businesses in the South. At the time, he was a big name. I reached out to him. He came on my show. No questions asked. I was only getting about 10 listeners at the time. He came on. And, I don't look at myself as a veteran, but I do kind of look at myself. Obviously, I do a lot of videos, and I'd be happy to help a guy like that. So I'm going to be on his show. It's mostly going to be about me, about my life in this business so far, kind of stuff I've done, and I'm going to help him out a little bit. So, follow him. I'll tweet it out, check it out, and it'll be fun. And we'll also be on Late Tight tonight. So we got a lot to do, Donnie. Everyone have a great night. Get on Paris Saint-Germain at 2:45. Anything from you?
No, we're good. As you know, I'm on the LA Angels over 9 tonight. Also, I like to match up dogs as the season goes on, as the day goes on. Follow me on Twitter at RightSideVP. We'll match up a couple dogs today. We'll take down some plus money.
Yeah, it's going to be at 2:30 today. I'll tweet it out. It'll be on the Twitter market. Thanks to Joe Duffy for coming on. Thanks, guys, for everyone on here posting great stuff. I know sometimes we don't agree, with stuff or whatever. We all have our own ways of handicapping, but always great participation. Pat Connolly, great channel. What do you think about the elimination game of the? I have no idea what you're talking about, bro. But I appreciate you listening and watching the show. Donnie, we'll see you back at 10 o'clock Eastern. Join us for the Late Night on Campus. Leave them with something before we go.
Get on LAA. Let's make some money, folks, and we'll be back tonight.
The over, you said.
Join us. Yep, LA over tonight. Over tonight, 9. It's going to start later, and then we'll match up some dogs. Let's get out of here.
Very good. We'll see you tonight, 10 o'clock. Bye-bye.